I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today we are reading from the book of Numbers, chapter 32, so let's focus on verses 31 through 33. The Gadites and the Reubenites replied, "What the Lord has spoken to your servants is what we will do. We will cross over the Jordan in battle formation before the Lord into the land of Canaan, but we will keep our hereditary possession across the Jordan." So Moses gave them, the Gadites, the Reubenites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, the kingdoms of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, the king of Bashan, the land including its cities with the territories surrounding them. Now, ever since Abram had left his hometown to follow the Lord to the place that I will show you, one thought has been at the forefront of the Hebrew mindset. One thought sustained Isaac when he was about to be sacrificed. One thought sustained Jacob through all of his troubles. And one thought gave birth to a nation, and one hope encouraged that nation to endure 400 years of slavery and 40 years in the desert. And that was that God's promise can be trusted. God had promised Canaan to Abraham's descendants. Israel was standing at the banks of the Jordan getting ready to receive the fulfillment of God's promise when a chunk of their fighting force said, "You know what, we're good. We don't need to enter in." Why would they have such a lukewarm reaction to entering the promised land? Well, in a word, I would say that their issue was value. They appraised their surroundings compared to Canaan. They could see across the river there. And then they chose to value the land east of the Jordan. And their evaluation seemed to be void of anything spiritual. It just simply made better human sense to them to live outside of the land of Israel. And to understand this passage, it's incumbent upon us to consider the difference between information and values. Now, information is just raw data. It's just information. Value is determined by the degree of consideration or trust that you pay to that source of data. For instance, the World Wide Web, the internet, is literally the information superhighway. But just because you have information at your fingertips doesn't mean that you should go to every website. You have values after all, and there's some websites that you should completely stay away from. Now, when I was a kid, my dad told me to rotate the car tires every 3,000 miles. I bought my own car, right? I started working when I was in 8th grade full-time, and I actually owned 2 cars before I could even drive one. But when I could drive, my dad said, rotate the car tires every 3,000 miles, and then you should also change the oil. And that was really good information. But sadly, I did not value that information until I had to replace my first set of prematurely worn tires because I had not rotated them as I thought, as my dad had told me. But Reuben, Gad, and the other warrior clans of Manasseh knew that Canaan was God's provision. That was the information that was given to them. They knew many generations had longed to enter in, suffering to lay the foundation for what was now offered to them by grace. And yet the value wasn't transferred. Value is transferred by personal relationships or personal experience. Perhaps the blame goes to their parents. And we know that sin kept the generation that left Egypt from entering into Canaan. And I suggest that Reuben and Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and their response was telling as to the sin effects on their elders' ability to communicate that value for God's word. They knew God's promise, they had the information, but they just did not esteem it. They didn't have value for it. Now, perhaps it was because they didn't esteem the source of God's word, their faithless parents. And you can attend a church and you can participate in what worshipers do and then leave unimpressed. But unless you surrender yourself to experience God in a personal way, you will never develop an enduring value for Him, His promises, or His people. And that's why we're spending time with Him every day, with Groundworks Ministries. We are reading His Word and we are getting to know Him personally. And when you know the Lord personally, then His values become your personal values. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Check us out at groundworksministries.com.